white noise or like?
No, the old school kinds, like the actual spirit boxes have white noise, but this one won't. It'll just have the words. We'll see what it says. Some people have had like really cool experiences though, where they'll like get names of their loved ones that have passed. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Like having a chip in your head sounds like a really good idea down the road. But like, I would go straight to prison. It's gonna say, calm the fuck down, and it won't mean you. Compton.
Well, I'm having this on, and we're just gonna put it on the floor so it's like away from us. So you're supposed to be not holding it. Okay, you want to sit? Just gonna turn this so we can see.
Are we starting?
Prisoner.
That works.
Hello. I guess we're starting.
I can't be the only one who hears you. Tears falling down at the party. Saddest little baby in the room.
Are we starting? Immediate answer.
That's not good.
Okay, so hello.
Oh, jeez.
Welcome to my new podcast adventure. It's a paranormal and spooky podcast called Dead Serious. DED. Don't you like that?
Dude, it was so fast.
Chico's already fucked up. We're waiting on coffee, so hopefully that'll help. This is
Prisoner. God. Oh, shit.
Okay. Oh wait, we need mics. Oh my god. Oh wait, where's your phone? I need it for audio. Oh, that was great.
That was...
Can you go to your voice memos?
Are you scared?
No. Should we?
I was just thinking, like, I hope she doesn't click on any of my current voice memos. And then, are you scared? Am I supposed to talk back? Like, no.
It knows your deepest, darkest secrets.
No shit. Oh, jeez.
I'm not going to listen to them.
No, it's just reminding me that I need to get rid of them.
Oh.
If anybody ever finds my phone, I'm going straight to prison.
Also, we have this going, which is GhostTube, which is an app that I'll probably explain on one of these one day. You can look it up yourself. But I also have this, which I saw, there was like another paranormal podcast where they would interview people and they would just have this in the background somewhere so that spirits, if you wanted, you can ding if you want to chime in. And so, so that's another way. If you guys want to say something, you can just do that. It's really easy. So we'll see. That would be amazing if that happened.
You are funny.
Thanks.
Somebody that died in 1901 and they're just cracking up right now. Is that what they mean?
No, so you know what's so funny is that I actually I got like the go ahead to start this podcast from the other side. So the other side, they just think I'm funny. Can you do this so we can get?
Yeah. I don't trust anything that's going on in here.
Okay, sorry. We had to get all of the who's that's done. Okay, so that is that.
The spider eggs in the window give it quite the background.
Oh yeah, there's a really big spider up there too. Okay, so my first guest is my very good friend Jacob Wheeler. He is an artist, a poet, lots of things. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
I'm an artist, a poet.
What did it say? Hopefully. You're funny.
There's a smart ass ghost in here. Yeah, so my name's Jacob Wheeler, and I was born and raised in Georgia in 1981. And then in 1981,
Cursed.
and then from there it just got worse. Fast forward, still cursed. No, I'm an artist, poet. I don't really only claim to be an artist because people tell me I have to say that. I'm really just a poet, and everything else is just extra. I don't know. There's really not a lot else to me. I just write, smoke cigars, and drink whiskey, and live by the beach. I don't. You know more about me than I know about me. Most of the things about me you really can't say. You know, I've had a lot of surgeries. I take a lot of pills for my brain. Try to stay out of prison, and I go to my doctor's appointments. And there's not a lot else other than that. Cursed.
That's funny as fuck. Not funny, haha, but funny. Oh wait,
I didn't know we were starting. Wasn't ready mentally.
we are starting.
Yeah. Unless Jameson wants to sponsor your podcast, they don't get the label toward the camera.
That's right. Oh, let me check on our coffees. Oh shit, they're here. Okay, hang on. I just gotta go get our coffees. They're downstairs. I'm gonna keep running the ghost tube while I'm gone. Have fun. Be right back. Oh,
Hey,
God.
Ghost, do you like coffee? Do you know the man that I saw during my first heart surgery? Do you know the man and the little girl that I saw in my 5th heart surgery? Were you there when I almost myself?
Climb.
Climb? What does that mean? Well, I'm definitely going to be thinking about that for a while.
Yay. What is it?
To choose.
Adam.
It's my brother's name.
I know. Cheers. Let me see. Hello. Okay.
That's hot.
Is it?
Oh,
Oh yeah, it's a little hot. I was worried it would be like room temp. Yum.
Bible.
No thanks.
Which one? Oh, that's good.
Yeah, isn't it? This place called Sean's, Candler Park breakfast place. They make very good coffees.
When people say nectar of the gods, are
Yeah.
they always talking about alcohol, or can it just be like anything?
No, I think technically that's coffee.
Oh, technically.
I do. I think, like, historically, I think that's technically
That's the
coffee.
nectar of the gods?
Yeah.
Bean juice?
Bean juice. Okay.
I buy it.
So, did you always believe in paranormal things, or did it happen? Like, did it happen because of an experience?
No, like, so modern day, I wouldn't call it a diagnosis. My psychiatrist says that many of them have said that I have a God complex, but that was just from me explaining kind of my path with seeing things the way I saw them, but more so like feeling things the way I felt them my entire life. I saw them yesterday. Like when I was a kid, I was like very, I don't know, like sensitive to everything that would happen.
I remember you.
You were there. But like leaves would fall, and in my brain, I'm like, why'd that leaf fall? Like, why that one leaf? Why did I see it? What does that mean? And then that just led into probably when I graduated high school, I got into this place to where I was put in people's lives. I felt like I was put in people's lives. Something would happen, they would leave my life, and they were usually better for it. But I felt just beat down. Like I had no energy. I would sleep for days. And fuck you. And then it would just deplete me. And then it would take me a long time to recover, like months. And it happened over and over again. And at the time, I wouldn't say I was religious, but I was very interested in the paths and the happenings of the past and what that would mean for the future of just not even me, but like humanity in general. There was this book called The Bible Code. And like, I read this book, The Bible Code, trying to figure out the secrets and the paths and what's to come and all this stuff, and got lost in that. And then, what's that? The guy who like predicted the future a long time ago, like in like little prophetic lines, like dude with the crazy hair.
Oh, Albert Einstein?
Crazy hair, not a future teller. Actually, he kind of was. He was like, one day. Yeah. I can't remember. We'll put it at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, yeah, you think of it.
And anyway, so I got caught up in that too. And I was like, maybe I could do that. Maybe I can feel it. And then that whole time that it was sucking me dry, I was running away. I was like, okay, forget God. Like, grew up in Southern Baptist, and all of a sudden I was like, well, maybe what's drawing me in is me feeling like I'm a tool in God's tool chest, the Christian God. And so I start running away from it. And in a way that I'm like, I start going to raves, not taking anybody with me going alone.
Visit me.
And it was, I was still being used, like, is what it felt like. Oh, I'm still being used. I can't get away from it. And it got to the point to where I remember being on my bed, like standing on my bed, screaming to the sky, stop it. But mostly I was demanding answers. I wanted to know, if you're going to do this and this is going to be my life, I want to know why. And is there an end? I had like just given in to the fact that I was going to be a tool in the tool chest of whatever creator there was. And finally, I decided that I was going to just leave, and I took a ton of medication. And after being awake for 3 days, and then that passed. They tried to get me help. I was misdiagnosed mentally, put on a bunch of drugs and stuff, but it never. So the thing of like me being used, kind of went away, but at least the feeling of it. But that was like during that time in my early 20s. That all happened pretty much between 18 and 22, 23. The whole time I felt like I was just being told things. Didn't know that that's what was happening at the time, because it was normal for me, very normal. And like now, being educated and properly diagnosed, I look back and I'm like, okay, was I mentally ill, or was I really hearing things? The first time I ever heard anything that felt audible was when I was like 22, and I heard my mom calling my name from another room, and she kept calling me, and I was trying to find her, and I went on the front porch, and my dad and my brother were there, and I was like, hey, where's mom? And they were like, oh, she's at the store, she should be back any minute. And I was like, oh. And then you start wondering, is that something calling you? Is that in your head? Fast forward time to like, now I'm 43, and I take medicine not to hear voices, I take medicine not to see things. And you just wonder if you're dulling your senses to things that you could be exploring, and things that might be trying to really communicate with you. I would hear a lot of things before my heart surgeries, and they say, oh, it's anxiety induced, it's stress induced when you start hearing things. But it's like, what if things start communicating with you when you need them to, in moments of distress?
That's like one of the reasons why I wanted to have you as my first guest, because you have had lots of experiences, but because of your background with mental health and your meds, etc. We've had lots of good conversation about that being a possibility, about people when they're in a certain level of mania or in psychosis or anything like that. Like maybe I think it's really possible that you could just be more exposed and tapping into another side that like normal
Let me show you.
yeah neurotypical cannot access without things like drugs, like psychedelics and things like that. That's kind of like, we've talked about that, like your brain is naturally like that all the time and you have to take drugs to dull that down so it's not all the time and you're not overwhelmed or dangerous. And I think other people are always seeking out to get there, so they have to take drugs. It's like the opposite, you know, to actually achieve the levels of that which you have naturally.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's been any sort of, did you ever look to see if there's any sort of like research about that, or like if doctors or scientists have thought about that before?
I mean, when you start talking about doctors and scientists inside of like the psychedelic hallucinogenic type world, when people want to go on trips and find things, the doctors and scientists in that world are probably your shamans and your spiritual guides, and
more like pseudoscience, I guess that would be technically
what it would be called, I think. But you know, it wasn't until I spoke to somebody who made sure I knew he wasn't a shaman and that he was a guide, that he spent a lot of his experiences with a shaman, so he felt comfortable helping people through their, I don't know, trips or whatever. He was asking me so many questions about my psychosis, and when I go in it, what it feels like for me, where I go, how it is, and he asked me about my awareness inside of it and stuff like that. And he told me after about an hour conversation, he kind of figured out, he was like, that he and people he knows, like that's the way I was describing it, was kind of where they try to get to, you know, during their trips. But you know, I don't know anybody else that has psychosis, so I don't know what their experiences are like. I know that mine are very philosophical and exploratory in nature. With a lot of people's psychosis, you know, it's dangerous, and you know, often hospitalized because of actions and speech. A lot of people, most people don't know I'm in psychosis when I'm in psychosis. I definitely don't know. You know, psychosis is when you create a world of your own and it makes sense to you, so you have no idea.
But that's kind of the same thing as sorry, like to bring up the psychedelics thing again, but kind of like that as well, where it kind of has a lot to do with your mental, like where you are mentally, because you and I could take the same exact drugs and have two very different experiences depending on our mental, like where we are mentally. So I think it's kind of the same, like where two people can experience psychosis, but it depends on if you are exploratory and philosophical and you're wanting to seek out answers versus people that are panicking and having a lot of fear.
Yeah.
I think it's very different.
Like we've talked a little bit about like tarot stuff, and I've been around people who were doing tarot stuff, and I've only had one experience with tarot, but they talk about the importance. Even the same people talked about a mushroom experience when they do mushrooms and stuff. But the tarot specifically is when the conversation started with them. They were talking about setting intentions. Like so as I understand it, you can't go into psychosis without being manic first. Some level of mania is how I understand it medically. I'm pretty self-aware when I'm manic. I have chronic mania, so I'm always manic in some way. But my mania will kind of skyrocket, for lack of better words, before it goes into psychosis. And psychosis is fairly rare for me, maybe once every couple of months if I'm lucky. Lucky in the way that it doesn't happen often. But if I was aware enough, like there's this point in the mania when it arcs, or when it gets to its highest point before it reaches my psychosis. If I could, I lose awareness there, but if I could somehow know right when I'm about to go in and set intentions, that would be gnarly. To set purposeful intentions going into psychosis, that would be cool. I think that my everyday curiosity with things probably helps what my psychosis is, you know, to a point. Sometimes, like when I fall into psychosis, it's more dangerous than it is philosophical. You know, like if life's getting a little too good and I fall into psychosis, I find myself climbing a water tower or laying in the ice cold ocean in the middle of January, getting hypothermia to try to feel closer to death, because that's what I'm used to. I'm not used to being healthy or anything. If life gets too good, Where I'm comfortable is being closer to death. I'm not trying to die.
Mm-hmm.
But in psychosis, those things make sense. Right now, I know better. No, you don't want to get hypothermia. No, you don't want to be up there in the water tower where the wind's gnarly and you might slip off from one little bad step. But like in psychosis, it's like, no, it makes perfect sense. Let's go to where we're comfortable. And that's not even a conscious thought in psychosis. It's not like you lose time or forget what happened. No, it happened. I remember it all.
Interesting. I don't think I knew that. I thought when you're like that, maybe you are kind of lost, but you're not.
I mean, lost you're kind of lost. You're lost in that world, but you don't know you're in it. Psychomotor seizures, you can lose time, but that's separate. That's not really, I don't think it's a more neurological condition than it is a mental illness. I don't think it's even in the category, but.
What do you want?
To drink coffee.
Me too. This thing is spitting out like whole sentences. Usually people just get words. It's very vocal.
I know.
More than I've seen.
I like this thing.
Yeah, it's cool.
But like, I guess kind of, if I think about what my psychosis is like, I am being communicated with, no doubt in my mind, that the things that are coming to me aren't product of my own mind. I might be accessing information that I can't access the same way when I'm not in psychosis.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind that I'm doing that. I'll read physics papers and then have to Google what certain things mean in the middle of a paper, or watch a YouTube, something on YouTube, and then come back to the paper and read it. But I can't necessarily formulate in my head philosophical thoughts about what I'm reading scientifically until I go into psychosis. And then I start philosophizing about the universe and possibility.
Yeah.
And that's not natural for me. And I don't know if it's psychosis I think it would be dumb for me to say, in psychosis, I can simply just say, in psychosis, I can access this information and do something with it. It's bigger than me.
Mm-hmm.
Before I was medicated, before I was 31, I would stay up for 3 days, and the poetry I would write, to this day, is probably the best stuff I've ever written. I would be up for 3 days, and I would feel like things were, like it was coming from something else.
Like downloads.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would finally go to sleep and then wake up and then read the poetry and just wondering how I got there, not remembering how that came to me to be able to put that down on paper. I miss it.
Yeah.
I miss it. I miss doing that. It was dangerous. I didn't know what psychosis was. I didn't know what mania was at the time. I was scared to go to the doctor by being like misdiagnosed again. But there's no doubt in my mind that to this day, that I receive, even when I'm not in psychosis and I'm writing and I find that groove, that place, because it's hard for me to get there. I'll write outside of it, but when I'm there, it's like I'm painting something that's coming to me, and the painting is just are the words that are coming out, and it's beautiful, and what I feel is not beautiful, but the way that it comes out is beautiful, and it doesn't seem like it comes from me.
It's almost like there's been like multiple instances throughout history of, especially like writers, which is kind of strange because you're obviously also a writer. But there was, I forget the name. If I can find it, I'll put it at the bottom of the screen. They were channeling this other author from like another time period, and they wrote an entire book channeling this other person. But they didn't have any recollection. Like whenever they came to out of the channeling time frames, they didn't know really what had happened or what was written. And it wasn't even in their handwriting. And they've written like entire novels like that, just like tapping into like somebody else's shit, which is fucking
gnarly.
Wild. I'll try to find it.
It makes sense. Like depending upon the tone of my poetry and the way it comes out, if you look at my journals, the handwriting's all over the place.
Yeah.
It looks like multiple people wrote in the same journal.
That's interesting.
Some of it's got to do with what is that?
Marie.
Some of it's got to do with how fast I'm writing, but sometimes it comes out as this like archaic print, and then sometimes it comes out as this sideways cursive, and it's not a conscious thought. It's how I'm receiving the emotion is how it comes out. I'm not a creative person. If you look at my life from the outside, like, oh, you're so creative. I'm not. I'm an athlete. I'm just this broke down athlete with mental problems.
He's lying. He's very creative.
By a product of if you do something long enough, you become good at it. I started writing at 8, so I just naturally became better at explaining myself through words.
I don't think that's true.
Well,
I mean, I think if you do anything long enough, you're going to be decent at it. But I don't think I've read your work, and I don't think it's that. I think you open certain doors and certain channels, and then it comes to you through that. And I think that you're really humble when you talk about your writing. But I don't think it's just, I mean, like people can, it's like the whole book taught thing versus your inner like artist.
Oh yeah.
I don't. A coffee, or a book,
Right.
But or a poem. Maybe they want you to write.
I'll write you a poem before we leave.
That would be amazing. No, I don't think the type of writing that you do can be learned necessarily. Like I think you can get better and better at it, but I think there's a lot of people that want to write and are really shit at it. Or maybe to me, just because I'm, whatever.
Oh no, there's shit writing out there for sure.
Yeah,
I'm not afraid to say.
And they've done it for years and years and years, so it's not. I don't think.
Yeah,
know what I mean?
Maybe, yeah.
Oh
yeah, there's a lot of people who've written multiple novels, and they're all kind of like
they're actual garbage. So I don't think that time has much to do. I agree. Like I guess
true.
with certain skills, like sculpting or something, you might like physical things, right? Anything like physical that you're doing, maybe after like tons and tons of hours of practice, you can get better. But I don't know about.
Yeah, so maybe it was a talent, and then I got lucky that I found it in this lifetime.
And I think you were actually forced there against your will.
It wasn't until I was like around 30 years old that I realized that I started writing the same year that I got sick.
Yeah.
What do you want?
That's the second time you've asked that. I don't know. What do you want? I want $1 million and to be able
to
to travel.
It's not talking to me. Yeah, I don't know. It was like I think that do you ever have thoughts to where you think about your ancestors?
Yeah.
So like the past 2.5 years, I thought a lot about my ancestors. There was a show that I watched a couple of times, the entire series, that a lot of my ancestors. I found out later by doing research that were in that show. They squeezed all of that in. Like I think 2 of them were about 100 years apart, but they made them seem a lot closer in age. They had them alive at the same time, and from both sides of my family. But it made me start hearing music differently. I wasn't even seeking out certain types of music, and it made me start looking at the ocean differently because they were explorers. And then all of a sudden, I started writing. I've always kind of written about ancestry, but I started writing about the spiritual guidance of my ancestors being around, because all of a sudden I felt this energy. And I don't know. And I think it was a combination of watching that show, doing some ancestry research, and realizing like, oh my God, that guy that I admired in that show so heavily was my, I don't know, 30-something great-grandfather. And then you have this connection, and you hear this certain type of music, you hear the waves, you ride at the beach, and you're tapping into this thing. And then you wonder, if there are multiple lives, was that one of your previous lives? And you start thinking like, okay, if it's a repetitive thing, are you born into the same family and the same blood? And if there's not repetition in lives and you're not reborn forever or at all, then maybe your ancestors sit next to you, and you walk with them until you join them. Because the poetry that I've been writing lately, probably, 80% or more has been me talking about, or just
show yourself,
writing about the connection with ancestry, or my ancestors watching me, or maybe guiding me in some way. Not really guiding, I don't really know how to put it, but there's this connection with the ancestry, and it feels more spiritual than it feels historical.
Yeah.
There's like energy there, and like a connection that I feel when I am wrapped in that moment of writing. Because like I can't just sit down right now and just write something. Or I could, but it wouldn't be the same as if I get engulfed in this feeling and I sit down to write because I'm feeling that way. and that's a gift. I love when those moments happen. And a lot of times it's because I'll hear a certain kind of drum in a song, or just like this ethereal thing. And you start feeling this certain thing you write down. And next thing you know, I'm feeling like my ancestors are inside of me, or a part of me, or next to me. And I'm not just writing about my current experiences and feelings, but I'm writing about theirs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe when they were alive, or maybe what they see in me. I'm not sure, but you know, and it's a lot like when I'm just I rarely write outside of mania. And these days, I don't even know if I write in psychosis, because I don't know when I'm in it necessarily all the time. But it makes me wonder if the only way I can tap into that is being manic. You know, like you said, like we've had discussions about whether or not, I don't know. I think there is.
Blessed.
I think there is mental illness. That's good. I think there is mental illness, for sure. There is mental illness. But I can't help and I've had conversations with my psychiatrist about
Continue.
if my psychiatrist says the same thing. But I've had conversations with her, like, am I dulling down this sensitivity to life and this insight? Because yeah, when you're manic and you're in psychosis, you are feeling things that you can't get to, and you do kind of feel like a god because of what you can tap into. Or that's my experience. It's not everybody's experience. And I don't know if it's because of my awareness when I'm in it. Because if I wasn't aware, it may be a lot different. It makes me wonder if the medicine's dulling it down. Something I'm supposed to have, something that we all had at one point.
Mm-hmm. I think about
does that make sense?
Yeah, because I've wondered the same thing. I don't love the concept of mental illness. Like, I know that it exists on extreme levels, right? Like, and I think that those people, if you're a danger to yourself or others, should be helped or medicated or whatever needs to be done, right? But at the same time, like, I think a lot of things that are like labeled as like a mental illness or like mental things, like even things like autism, like on the spectrum type things, I think a lot of that is really misunderstood. And I think we're just now like at the beginning of trying, like, kind of understanding that it has been for years and years and years. Because like, even like, think about like autism when we were kids, it was really looked down upon. Really?
Right beside you.
I'm beside you.
Yeah.
Okay, you can chill.
Your autistic ghost.
Or spirit guides. I really believe in spirit guides, so I love that.
I don't know anything about it. You have to tell me.
I mean, that's your ancestry stuff.
Oh.
I think about like autism when we were growing up. It was not.
They thought you had a learning disability.
Yeah,
or
and
called
it
you horrible
wasn't.
things.
Yeah, horrible names.
Yeah.
A lot of bullying. Like, it wasn't anything to be. It was a lot. Like, people were ashamed. It's crazy now because people with autism are actually being seen in a little bit of a different light. Oh.
What is that?
Wicked.
Maybe it's like wicked. Instead of that's wicked.
Or they're talking about like people being wicked to people with autism.
Subject.
I think
Suspicious.
Yeah, they were suspicious of it because they didn't. People are always suspicious of things you don't understand. But I think that with that, for example, you can see a lot of those people working in like Silicon Valley now, and like they're in higher paid jobs where they actually have realized that their brains work completely different than neurotypical people, and they can execute a lot of things better than neurotypical people can.
Yeah.
And even going further back from that, think about all the people with mental illness that were labeled as like crazy.
Lobotomies.
Yes, like, I think it's very different now where we're kind of seeing, and I think that we have a really long way to go with all of that.
13.
My favorite number. So yeah.
Clouded.
Why are you laughing?
Because you were like, and it's like clouded. You're feeling clouded. No, but like somebody really close to me just got diagnosed with autism. Their child did, and it's interesting because like when we were young, or like say elementary school, it was a curse.
Mm-hmm.
But now people are more hopeful than ever,
mm-hmm.
because if you find the thing that they're good at, or things that they're good at, they excel beyond belief
Yeah.
more than we could ever do if we went to
Mhm.
school for it or whatever, you know. And whether it's music or science, or if you find that thing, and it's just a more hopeful thing than ever. If I lived during the period that this home was built with the same issues I have now,
Yeah.
you wouldn't see me.
Yeah.
You know, they would have lobotomy. I don't know what else they did back then. I don't know when electroshock therapy came in.
Probably, definitely, you would have been having
When
that.
I got diagnosed, somebody really close to me that was older than me wasn't aware of mental illness. You know, they didn't have any experience with it, and they thought that that I should go get electroshock therapy.
Stop.
They thought
Were they still doing that?
They thought they were being helpful. They do a version of something to where they're doing something, but not I believe what he suggested was what he thought, you know, put the wooden stick in your mouth and blah, you know, like he's like, have you thought about, you know, electroshock?
You're like,
I'm like,
not really.
I'm never telling you anything about my mental health ever again.
Don't really want to do that.
Because at the time it was the diagnosis, but all of them were brand new to me. And so I was looking for him to say that to me. I was like, is that what I need? Like, you know.
That's terrifying.
But, you know, I mean, even the witches thing, like if you were a little bit sensitive to if you were a little bit sensitive to nature, or a little bit if you were an empath, probably during the time that they were killing witches. And
even worse,
witches.
if you had an animal.
Like a certain animal?
If any animal, if someone had a pet,
Like
they
a
thought,
pet?
they would think it's a familiar because that's what they had. Like,
Stop interrupting.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
So like if I was alive during that period of time, I'd have had no shot, or I'd have to try and keep it secret and wouldn't have been able to explore my creativity. Can you imagine sharing a poem about your ancestors or things you think and feel that aren't religion based at the time? No matter the religion, they were like, set them on fire or whatever, put them in the basement.
I have to tell you about my
I thought you were about to ring the bell. I was like,
Ding! No, I have to tell you about my past life regression. I found out about one of my past lives. I was a witch for sure. And I think I was burned, or I was there at the burnings.
it's, you know what's funny about that? A lot of the one of the first concepts when I met you, and you were going to model for me, one of the first concepts that I had when I met you, didn't really know you yet, was trying to figure out, do you remember me talking about trying to figure out, like doing a test shoot with burning either an upside down cross or just a stake in the ground?
I think you wanted to hang me upside down.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And like figure out how
We
to
should still do that.
like overlay the flame.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing at the time at all. Still don't.
We could do it now for sure.
Oh yeah, a lot more capable now. But that was one of the first things when I met you, before I knew you really well, was like, I want to do that. And I asked you like hesitantly and like a little bit like, I don't know. Now I'm a lot more confident in asking people to do things. But back then I was like, is that stupid? Is this stupid? Am I gonna insult you by that? Like, I didn't know you very well.
Yeah.
But that was one of the first concepts, if not the first concept that I had when I came to, because you've always been you've became a muse for me with writing and with creating visual art. But one of the first, more whiskey, but one of the first concepts I ever had when I take my poetry and turn it into visual art was you burning upside down on a stake.
It's fucking crazy.
Makes sense now that you say that, though.
It makes sense too, because if I think that you're kind of a little bit, I think maybe you're a little bit medium-ish, that you don't really understand yet right now, or haven't tapped into, or might not. I'm not sure.
I explored that a little bit and thought about it in my early 20s, but I dated a girl that told me, I know her now and her views are completely changed, but when I told her back then, kind of like, I forget how I worded it, but what do you think about people who can communicate or feel like you're being communicated with? And she's like, that's the devil. I'm like, what the? I didn't necessarily believe in the devil, but I'm thinking, is that what people think? Like, and so I just shut it off. I didn't explore it anymore. And then like, you always meet, I have a cat, but you always meet cat ladies who are empaths and mediums. And what's the percentage that they're all empaths and mediums? And they all, I'm going to be an asshole. They all look the same. They all smell the same, dress the same. But then you meet somebody who is really a medium or an empath. A lot of empaths out there. But the more I heard that everybody said they were a medium, the more I just ran from it.
Yeah.
You know? And it's a little, I wouldn't say it's scary, but it's uncomfortable to think. It seems like a lot of responsibility. And I didn't want that. You know, I had enough going on.
Well, and that you're not, well, I'm just thinking about like the voices and things like that too. Like what's the difference then? Like if mediums are around and they hear voices all the time and they don't know where they're coming from, like what's the difference in that and what you're going through?
That's true.
Or even people that experience other people's emotions and it's not their own. It's too long to tell you about. Maybe I'll do it another time. But there was another medium that when I had my past life regression, she was just in the room.
We can make this as long as you want and then
It'll
just cut it down. Yeah.
Well, I have 2.5 hours on my battery life. So
charge that shit.
Or I guess we could dump it. Yeah. Or on my card, I mean. But no, there was a medium that was in the room. We hadn't spoken a word the whole day. We were at a retreat and we hadn't spoken a word to each other. We didn't have any kind of communication. I had my past life regression. We had, after that, we had a Lilith breath work to really open ourselves up and to dive deeper into what we needed to see for that day. And I had a really intense experience that I think showed me a past life. And I kept getting these flashes. It's a long thing that ties all together, but basically I was feeling burning and I kept getting flashes of like the witch trials. Basically, I don't know if it was Salem or if it was somewhere in Europe because Europe had way more witch trials than we had in here in Salem. It was like a much bigger problem in places like Germany. So that's a possibility from like my ancestry, what I know. The medium that was in there, she pointed to me later in the day and she said, I saw the witches burning. And she was the one, there was somebody, I had a blindfold on during like the breath work. And when I was seeing all this stuff, and there was somebody that had come around to my back and put their hands on my back, and it was her.
Please listen.
Okay. Because she had felt that I was like burning and she was trying to like heal or like calm me down or whatever. But that was, yeah, it was a crazy recollection.
Julia.
Oh, shit.
What?
Julia? Maybe that was my name in a past life.
Oh, that'd be cool. That's a pretty name.
Um,
How did you feel? Did you feel like reassured, or did you feel confused, or did you feel confident in what you felt before, like knowing things were facts, or
yeah,
justified? Or...
I felt justified. I felt like I've always joked about, like maybe I was a vision of, I was like, huh. And because I think in this life, I'm what you would call like a natural witch. Like everyone knows, like I have like mad manifestation skills, but I don't really know how to control them.
Like the first time I met you, it was clear that there was something about you. I mean, I've been calling you an alien, like I think since the day we met, because that's just comes from something about you isn't earthly. You know, it's not. I was gonna say it's not natural. It sounds like unnatural. It sounds like an insult, but like it's not. There's more to you than just like just being a vessel. Like a lot of people, you know. I mean, most people want to skate through life with a white picket fence or make it as easy as possible. Ignorance is bliss.
What are you doing here?
Sorry, we're just doing. I realized that I think when they ask, "What are you doing?" or "What do you need?" they're not sure why we're here. We're just doing a little podcast. Sorry to intrude.
It's funny because it has one tone of voice, so you don't know.
Yeah, you can choose. It's just like a.
Yeah,
I wish it was,
because it could have been like, "What are you guys doing here?" Or no, it's like, "What are you doing here?" It's like you gotta kind of pick and choose what their their tone of voice is.
It's asked. At first, I thought when it was asking like, "What do you want?" But now I'm thinking it's like someone being like, "What do you want?"
Dude,
like in my
what
space.
If did it say prisoner or did it say prison?
Prisoner.
What if they weren't talking about me, like answering me? What if they were talking about their prisoner?
Oh, yeah. Like
open a window.
Stuck here.
And the windows don't open.
I know I can feel from things that have happened in my life that I have certain abilities, but I wish that I knew how to control them better. It's something I'm like trying to work on. But I feel like the more that I work on it, it's kind of like when you're focusing on something too much, you can't see it. I feel like that with my abilities. Like the more I try to it's like you're trying too hard. I do my best stuff when I'm not trying at all. Like it's just like it's like a throwaway thing.
Yeah.
But I know I think now after
Visit me.
okay, we will. I come up here a lot now. Maybe they like us here. I think after having that experience, I feel like that's where a lot of that comes from. You know, like maybe I had that in the past life, and then that's like bleeding over into this one, and that's why I don't really get it. And I also, it's crazy because anytime I see,
Assuredly.
anytime I see, like I saw Wicked recently. It was really good, actually.
That like musical thing.
hmm I went with Pierce and Andrew, but it was crazy because they show in the
Who
beginning.
liked it more, Pierce and Andrew or you?
I did cry. I've never seen the music. They definitely loved it more. Like, Pierce has never seen it either, though. But Andrew is a huge musical person, so he loved it.
Yeah.
It tracks. I'm not a musical person. I only like dark musicals, like Phantom of the Opera or like Sweeney Todd, that kind of stuff. I'm not like a. Oh yeah, I've always heard that I would love Wicked because it's about witch stuff, and you know they were like, you would love the story of Elphaba. Like she's like cast out, and she's not the bad guy, but she's turned into the bad guy. Anti-hero, which is my favorite type of character.
Is that the pretty one or the green one?
The green one. The green one is the one that's cast out as wicked, but she's actually not wicked. It's crazy that we're saying some of the same things that it said earlier. Like you said something about Bible, and it said Bible earlier, and then I said wicked, and it said wicked earlier.
Oh yeah.
It's like reading our minds.
Yeah, like it knows where the conversation's going.
Yeah, wild.
It'd be easy to say that you've lived past lives because it makes a lot of sense that you have done this before. But what if it's your first life, and the reason it seems like you can't, that it feels like you got a lot going on, is because it's your first rodeo and they just dumped it in your lap. Like you were born self-aware so you could feel it all. Probably not the truth.
I don't think so.
No, it's not the truth. But
I think I've been here before a lot of times.
If there's anybody I know that has done this thing a few times at the least, it's probably you. Because I don't, you hear about the whole thing, you do it until you get it right. Nothing drives me more crazy than to hear that, because
I think that's true.
I want to know the equation and what is getting it right. Because according to whom, according to what?
I think until you learn what you're supposed to learn.
And then what is that? Like, and then how do you know? And then who's to say? And then in life, every trip's different.
Mm-hmm. But I think that depends on you as well.
I don't know. Like, this must be my last trip, because I've always felt like it was my first, but it must be my last because I could have died when I was 12 and I'm like, I'm good. Is that getting it right? Like, I don't know what else getting it right is, because who's got the list? Who checks the mark? Like, I don't, it's so easy to say. You do it until you get it right. I think it's just an easy thing to say. Because getting it right, if you are a person who evolves consistently and constantly and puts effort into evolving, eventually you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And if you were in the middle of evolving, how could you die and say you got it right? I don't think a person who is self-aware and continually evolving the way that we should want to, I think if you want to enjoy this place the way you should, I think you die with evolution in your blood. And I don't think there's any way that you could get it right.
So do you think you're just in like a constant cycle?
That's the thing. I got all the antithesis of the philosophy, but I have no answers. I don't know. And sometimes finality can make people uncomfortable, and maybe that's why. Maybe there's a finality to it, and it makes me uncomfortable.
See, it's crazy because like when I was growing up, that was like one of my big things with Christianity that I didn't like. I had lots of things I didn't like, but I didn't ever tell about. Okay, really quickly about the whole Wicked thing. That's why I brought that up. Is because I had this very crazy reaction in the beginning of the film. They showed them like burning. It's not the witch at the stake, but they burn like a kind of like a Trojan horse of a witch figure. And they're like, burn the witch. And I had like it's like a fun musical. And I had like yeah, there is a castle in that. But I had like a very like visceral reaction to like almost like started tearing up, which was crazy. So anyway, that's just throwing
I
that out
get
there.
that. There's a TV show that I've watched more than any other TV show. It's called Rectify. I've never connected. The closest I came to connecting with anything was, I think it was downstairs. No? The only thing I've ever almost connected to as much as that was that movie, The Green Mile, or Green Mile. Because it was when I watched it, was when I was feeling like I was a tool in a tool chest, and he would heal people, but then he would feel consequences from healing people or
It's
helping people.
outside.
And then I watched Rectify, and I was the same age as the character when it came out. And he gets off death row or whatever, and gets to live this new life. And because he's
Like a
the same,
prisoner.
yeah, oh yeah. And because he's the same age, when he went to the attic and dug in his old stuff, you know, he was in prison for 20 years. It was a mixtape his girlfriend made him that he was supposedly killed. And it was like Mazzy Star, Radiohead, Stone Temple Pilots. Maybe not Radiohead, but Stone Temple Pilots. Yeah, because I'm thinking Creep might have been this. No, it wasn't. I don't remember what song it was. I know the tune, but I'm not going to sing. But then, yeah, and it was just like, I don't know. But I never related to more to anything. And like, to like what you're saying, like it made me tear up heavily. I can't watch that without, and it's almost like a boo-hoo cry.
And
like,
it doesn't feel, it's like, you know, the difference between like a reasonable reaction to something sad on TV versus like something that feels like something you've lived through.
Yeah, it's like a trigger. Like of some
yeah,
kind.
a trigger is a good word. Yeah, it's very different. That's the first time that I've experienced that. Maybe because I'm more aware of it now, where I felt, but it was very odd because I've seen things and I always feel weirdly connected or protective whenever I watch any sort of witchy films. Like whenever stuff like that's going on, like it gives me like, it fills me with rage.
Like with Rectify, I realized I had been searching for something that was relative to my life.
Yeah.
I didn't know it until I saw it, until I felt it. And I think that's probably why I cry so hard when I watch it. I try not to watch it at certain episodes, at least around other people. But it's almost something I want to share with other people, saying, hey, instead of like, hey, go look at my art, my poetry, that's me. I always like, hey, look at Rectify, that was me, or that's me. You know?
Yeah.
It's like, I think we all, even if we don't know it, we search for something to connect to. You know? And then who's to say, I don't know, like, what's a spirit guide?
It's like somebody that helps you from the other side. It can be a lot of different things. Like some spirit guides are like ancestors, and some are random attachments to you. Some are other earthly beings and animals. Like it really depends on the person, and you kind of collect them as you go, or like maybe they're your whole life. But usually they're there to help you.
I was asking because like it made me wonder, like maybe that's what brings us things like that, like Wicked,
Not
or
all
like,
of us.
I'm sorry. Yeah. But maybe, you know, like maybe that's what brings, because it's kind of comfort. It was comforting. It's like Rectify was like a reflection of my life and how, because I didn't realize how difficult my life was because I was in it and it's all I knew. And so I didn't know it because that started when I was a kid. But then when I saw that TV show, it brought it to my face, like, your life was difficult and it's okay that it was hard. You can acknowledge that it was hard. That because you acknowledge it doesn't mean you shouldn't have guilt for acknowledging how hard your life's been, you know?
Yeah.
And I wonder if our navigation through life to discover things that are of vital importance, maybe because I never thought about spiritual guides in my life, or the different things that could be for different people, but it would make sense that the revelations you have in life
I'm watching you.
that you have, it's not my spirit guide, but like it would make sense that the important revelations we have in life, if we're open, that it would be some kind of guide. It would make more sense than not having one, almost, I think.
Yeah.
Because then you're left to wonder how you get there. And an easy answer that would make I don't guess it's probably not easy because a lot of people would not be open to it. But I think that it's a logical answer. I think it's a logical answer that we're guided. Call it what you want.
You said you're all right.
Is that what it said?
Mm-hmm.
It said you're
like
all right?
All right, not all right, but all right. Like everything you're saying is right.
It's all right. Well, that's good. I don't have to say anything else then. This was fun.
So your first. It's okay. We like when you interrupt. It's fine. Your first experience was that when you audibly heard your mother. And do you think that, because that could be a couple of different things from like things that I've researched, it could have been like residual, like time frame, like because the time also can affect like things that are paranormal, like different time dimensions slipping into each other.
Dude, it seemed like a memory.
Yeah. Like
once they said she'll be right back.
Okay.
I was like, it immediately seemed like a memory, and it took me back. It didn't feel like a memory at my current age. It felt like maybe
when you were young.
It immediately felt like I was young.
Yeah.
I felt like a kid.
That's better, because it either is usually that or it's like somebody mimicking, which is very scary. Like doppelganger mimicking.
That didn't cross my mind at all.
Okay. So it's probably the other, like I was wondering. And was that your first experience ever?
First ever.
I actually know this answer kind of, but I don't know all of it, because there's multiple different ways that people can experience things. Like I usually am auditory, less seeing stuff. I see stuff sometimes, but not as much as I hear things. What is your experience versus like audible, hearing, feeling? Some people like have things come to them in dreams. How do you experience the paranormal? Mostly, or all of it? Whatever. It's
funny, like you call it paranormal, and my psychiatrist calls it schizoaffective. So I don't, I think after that, it was years later, I was having my 5th heart surgery, because I don't think there was anything in between, audible or visual, hallucinatory. What's the word? Hallucinatory? I'm making up a word.
Wait, so you didn't have any experiences from that first one up until you had your heart surgery?
Yeah, from like 21. Well, I've had 7, but from like 21 to 27, I don't think I had anything in between.
That's a long stretch.
Yeah, but that's when I was like just waiting to die and like chasing it, or just open to it. Not open, like I was ready. But it was the 5th heart surgery. And they had talked me into doing it. They had to talk me into doing it. Technology had changed, and they were like, you can do it, whatever. And I was like, I'm not doing any more heart surgeries. Long story short, family and friends convinced me to do it. In the 2 months leading up to it, I just had started dating this girl. And we went to her house, and we were sitting on her back deck, and she was like, you want some wine? I didn't drink wine, but she was hot. So I was like, yeah, I'll drink wine. And then she went inside. And I was waiting to have this surgery. And from the bushes on the deck, it was first level, it was backyard level. From the area of the bushes, I'm sitting on a chair on the deck. And he said, what are you willing to do? I was like, I knew it wasn't coming from a person. So I wasn't like scared somebody was behind me. But I did look like, okay, did I really hear that? And then it was like, what are you willing to do? And immediately I knew or felt like it was talking about, what are you willing to do to stay alive? Mm-hmm. And then for the next 2 months, all the way up to 2 days before the surgery, it stopped the day before or 2 days before, I heard it all the time, everywhere I went.
That same sentence?
The same voice. It wasn't male, it wasn't female. It was just this voice. It was like, what are you willing to do? And it was audible. I could hear it. It wasn't in my head. I heard it. Because I hear things in my head.
Yeah.
But I also occasionally have auditory hallucinations. And this was auditory. And it didn't feel like a hallucination. It felt like I don't even know how to explain it. Like it was, I don't know. It was almost like a me. Like it was me, like looking back, it was me somewhere else, like talking to me. Like I was in some parallel area, or it was a future me in some post-life future of a reincarnated version talking to me now. I don't know. Like
or in this life, an older version of you. There's been lots of people that have had experiences like that when they were little, where it's kind of like did you ever watch House on Haunted Hill or House Haunted Hill. It was a series.
The show? No, I didn't watch the show.
It was really fucking good. But they kind of played. But they kind of played on it. But there has been lots of instances in real life where people will be like haunted or visited by somebody. Yeah, by somebody from the grave.
Is it grave?
Yeah. They'll have like multiple instances where they'll be haunted by something that's like scary for them. You have goosebumps?
Yeah. It said find me. And then it said grave.
Only for you.
Yeah, thanks.
When they get older, there was this one girl that said that she was really scared. There was this woman visiting her by her bed when she was younger for like years and years and years. And then she looked in the mirror one day. This was like when she was like in her 20s, 30s. She looked in the mirror and she realized like she looked like that woman. And she had like flashbacks of all the times that she saw this woman visiting her, but she thinks it was actually herself visiting her from the future. So like it could have been that. Like it kind of felt like lifetime? Yourself being like, what are you willing to do to stay here and be me? Yeah. Is that wild? Yeah,
because I'm kind of having revelations now of what that could have been. I was trying to get away from it more than relive it, you know? But I mean, it made an imprint on me where I can still hear it, right? Like in my head, I can recall it, you know? I don't still hear it, but I can recall it. And it wasn't scary. It was a little like, it's like, you know what it means, but you still want to know for sure. It's like, it's asking you, it's talking about the surgeries, you know, but you still wonder, like, are you sure it's talking about the surgeries, you know? Or maybe it wasn't, because that surgery didn't work. And the cardiologist was like, for sure, technology's changed, family and friends, it's going to work. And then that surgery is when I saw the guy for the second time when I was under. And that's when the little girl was there.
So that brings us to the next thing I wanted to talk about or ask you, because I was watching.
Pee before we.
Yes, a pee break. You can go. You want to go first? Pee break. I'm just going to let things keep running. So it, just leave it on.
While I pee. No.
Here.